Ooh, that North London derby is going to be spicy. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the James... What's all this? Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the James Lawrence Allcott channel. Hope you guys are doing very, very well. I've had a great night's sleep, so I'm excited to do this video. And we've got a wicked week of content on the channel this week. This is the Fallout. If you don't know what the Fallout is, this is a show where if you want to watch a video for 20-odd minutes and then take some of that knowledge down the pub and go, guys, did you know that blah, 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 XG? This is the channel for you. Value, insight. So if you do visit pubs on occasion, hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button, because you will enjoy it. And hit the notification bell. Because as I say, very cool videos this week. England squad builder for certain. Pretty sure I'm going to do it live as well because it's just bloody good fun. So if you want to be a part of that video in the live chat, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Okay, we're marching to 200k. Let's get on with it. Let's talk about El Clasico. Now, I wasn't going to do other games, a lot of other leagues. We'd normally just do the Premier League. And there will be a focus on Premier League games. And with this series, if you don't know and you haven't watched it before, we basically have a look at games tactically. But El Clasico is just so fascinating in terms of how it played out that we had to talk about it. Now, there's a few things we could talk about. I've never seen a team more reliant on one player than, or a top team, a team that is top of the league right now, clear by 9 points. To be so reliant on one player. Name another team that is more reliant on one player than Real Madrid and Karim Benzema. Because without him, they were all at sea in this game, and they got absolutely pumped. Now, I did call that Barcelona were going to win this on ESPN. Just saying. Because I think the way that they're playing right now is just so exciting. But for them to win 4-0 was... there was a few things at play here. First of all, it's interesting to think about La Liga, actually, at the moment, and where they're at. The fact that, you know, a team like that can lose 4-0 at home. Is that down to the fact that Barcelona are just on the start of an incredible resurgence? I also think there's a really interesting point about Xavi and actually disciples of Guardiola. Are we going to start to see this new sort of wave of managers playing this very controlled possession football? Possibly, because I think Arteta, you see what he's starting to do there at Arsenal. You've got these managers, you've got very, very clear visions, and I think that's the starting point for a good manager and a good team and a good club with unity and an identity. But yeah, so the game itself was interesting. I think, in particular, the fact... Get to it. Where is it? The fact that Real Madrid set up in a very, very strange formation. As you can see here, no forwards, really. And I don't really understand what they were trying to do here. You had Vinicius Jr., who was trying his best. He was getting into a couple of good shooting positions. He had 4 attempted dribbles in this game. But if you look at the average positions, it's really, really interesting to see, first of all, the mess of Real Madrid. And then the explanation as you look across at Barcelona's dominance. Because actually, in terms of possession, it was 63% in the first half, which is pretty dominant from Barcelona. But Real Madrid had 470-odd passes in the game. So they did have the ball a lot of the time. The problem that they had was because they didn't have Karim Benzema like they normally do, that meant that Modric was playing higher up the pitch. They're playing Valverde as this sort of like false 9. And they were all... I think part of the idea was to try and isolate these areas of the pitch and give Vinicius Jr. some room to play in and let him be the focal point. You know, we see this with Arsenal, for example, where Saka's a lot higher up. Salah, where he's a lot higher up. But you still need that focal point through the middle. You really, really do, to be able to create stuff. And also to get the best out of someone like Modric so he can pick up the ball and get into different places. And also just to generally have a better focus. There was an attempt here for Real Madrid to sort of stifle Busquets. But it just didn't really work because he was a little bit too good. But also, the way that Barcelona are playing these days is so different. And Jordi Alba, in particular, has such a role to play that they were able to sort of work through this sort of congested central space. So to see such a mess like this, I think you're then thinking, so what have we got with Barcelona? I mean, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It's exactly where they all want to be on the pitch. And so there clearly was, if you think about Real Madrid, where their players were, Defensively, there was a focus of trying to stop someone like Busquets, but he still had 92% pass accuracy during the game, 95 touches on the ball, so he was able to get on the ball a lot. But as I say, Jordi Alba was the route out of it throughout the game. He was the cornerstone of the game for Barcelona, always an option for them, and he played this sort of deeper, narrower role a lot of the time on this left-hand side. And with 105 touches, he had more touches than any player in the game. And as I say, this position here that he takes up, it's really interesting. I think we're going to see this more and more and more. Fullbacks coming inside and almost, yes, defensively without the ball, they're fullbacks, but with the ball, they're playmakers. And Jordi Alba, I guess maybe getting that little bit older, maybe that's part of this, but the intelligence of him as well is a huge part of it. But in terms of him being on the ball here all the time, I thought that was really, really interesting. And Barcelona took him apart, really. Yes, a couple of the goals were, well, they were from crosses. And now let's talk about Dembele as well, because Dembele was absolutely outrageous in this game. 2 assists for him. Had Nacho Fernandez on toast, and both the fullbacks now for Real Madrid. I think ultimately that's a problem for Real Madrid going forward as well. It's been on Benzema's shoulders so much. And the one thing I don't understand is you've got Mariano Diaz, who did come on, but you've got Luka Jovic. You've got Luka Jovic there. Use him. Play the same way and allow Modric to be a better player. Ancelotti had an absolute stinker in this game. And the best way I can showcase this is by having a look at this pass map. Have a look at this pass map. What this shows you is that the fact that, yes, they might have been able to get the ball to Modric, but it was just backwards and sideways. It was very, very comfortable for Barcelona. They also had the ball more often than not. And so those two things played a big part. So I kind of saw this coming. I really am excited about what Xavi's doing there. It's one that I'm intrigued to see how it ages. And I wonder if people are kind of excited by it now because you've got these exciting young players like Pedri involved, Frankie de Jong playing higher up the pitch as well. Ferran Torres coming and getting involved as well, playing this sort of David Villa role for them. It's a really interesting way of seeing them play. And it is tiki-taka, but it is that little bit more different as well because they are able to mix it up just that little bit more. But I wonder if fans will get a little bit bored of it as time goes on. I think we're at this crossroads now where, as I say, there's a lot of disciples of Pep Guardiola kind of going into management and they're going to want to dominate the football, which kind of goes in the face of that gegenpress that we've seen over the last few years. So I'm intrigued to see how that one plays out. Big question for you guys. Let me know in the comments below. How do you feel about La Liga right now? Because I think that there's a dangerous way of talking about this, which is that it's in a bit of a state. And it is in a bit of a state, but the reason it's in a bit of a state is because it's getting its house in order. You know, Barcelona haven't been able to have that free reign of spending. La Liga is putting the cuffs on that a little bit. This Real Madrid side, probably within the same remit, haven't been able to go out and spend as they previously have done. And so have an aging squad where Modric is going to have to go sooner or later. Benzema is going to have to move sooner or later. You've got 2 fullbacks there in Carvajal and Nacho Fernandez, which are a problem as well. And you've got a team that's top of the league losing 4-0 to a team in third. So where are you at with La Liga? Is this something that's actually better for the long-term health of La Liga? But also, when we're concerned with Super Leagues and things like that, is it a bit worrying for the global game that the likes of Man City and Liverpool and Chelsea and the amount of money that is in the Premier League is making us look at La Liga as a less enterprising proposition? Because I think if you think of the players like Aubameyang, Ferran Torres, Traore, 3 players that didn't totally set the world alight, certainly not this season in the Premier League, they've gone to Barcelona and they are absolutely flying for them. And I think that's interesting. And it's like the idea of competition is an interesting one as well, and quality, and how that kind of finds its way to different leagues. So let me know how you feel about La Liga, Barcelona, Real Madrid. Is this Barcelona team in the midst of something really, really exciting? Is something happening here? Let me know in the comments down below. Oh, I forgot to say this. This is what's so exciting about Barcelona, is the way they work the ball and then get the ball to the byline. They're scoring a lot of goals from crosses. I know they scored one from a corner, but Dembele isolating Nacho Fernandez and getting the ball wide as well. They actually could have scored more goals, but most importantly, 7 big chances to 0 for Real Madrid. Has Jesse Marsch actually improved Leeds at all? Yes, he's got a couple of victories. Is this down to the new manager bounce? Is this down to a couple of easier fixtures? Or are we starting to see a few elements here? Now, 4 games so far. The results so far, 1-0 defeat to Leicester City, where they had a better XG, 2 to 0.5. Leeds, Aston Villa, very poor in that game, 0.24 to 1.31. Lost 3-0 in that game. Mad game against Leeds, 2-1 in that one, 2.62 XG to 1.38. And the Wolves game, yes, they had 10 men, but Wolves 2, Leeds 3 in the game at the weekend, 1.12 XG to 2.29. So the point I'm making when I say that is that Leeds have bounced up when it comes to their XG and their XGA as well. If you look at Bielsa's numbers, have a look at this table here. Look at Bielsa's numbers from the first 4 games of Marsch's time as Leeds United manager. The expected goals is higher. The expected goals against is much lower. I think that's an important point to make. And the PPDA, the passes allowed per defensive action in the opposition half, is down. Now, that's interesting. Now, the pressing is a really, really interesting element of what Jesse Marsch has sort of tweaked and changed over the last 4 games. Yes, it's a small data set, but, you know, the point is we're talking about football, so we want to have a look at these things and kind of make some gentle conclusions. Now, time will tell, of course, and it depends who they're playing as well, but there's definitely a clearer focus on how they're playing. Now, the philosophy under Bielsa was obviously high pressing, but it was man-for-man pressing, and that's something that Jesse Marsch isn't as bothered about. It's about efficiency of pressing as well. And it's, I guess possibly, dangerous to say it, of course, but a more refined approach to pressing. And the numbers suggest it as well, because they're not actually pressing any less. They're just pressing with more efficiency. A lot of the time for Leeds, it was in the middle third that they were pressing so much. So the Leeds squad over the season are averaging 174.2 pressures per 90, with a success rate of 30.3%. So over the 4 matches that Marsch has been in charge, they're averaging 200.5 pressures per game. And the success rate is 32.6% on average. So they're pressing more and with a higher efficiency. So that shows that the press is a bit more thought through, I think. I think they're being careful in how they're doing. And also, the idea is that depending on the game and the situation, it isn't just the same full throttle pressing that you had under Bielsa. And you can see that from the 4 games as well. The Leicester game, 258 pressures. Obviously, a lot of adrenaline in that game. Aston Villa, 186, big drop down there. 194 against Norwich and 164. Yes, you're going up against 10 men in that game against Wolves, but you can see that there is a methodical approach where Bielsa always had the handbrake down. Jesse Marsch is being a bit more careful in how he's doing it, having a bit more security through it, and it's a bit more about pressing triggers as opposed to man-for-man pressing. Look, let's not go too far here. Leeds United have been somewhat fortunate in the 2 victories that they've got, and the bottom line is, who cares, really? You know, Leeds United want to stay up, and at the moment, they needed those 6 points. And let's remember, this is against a Wolves team that went 2-0 up, looked quite comfortable, and then Raul Jimenez has been sent off for something that feels pretty ridiculous to me. And the game changes. But the sort of tweak on the formation, alongside that off-the-ball tweak as well, in terms of, I guess, using press triggers and using the touchline as well for the team as well, is important, because in terms of cutting through the team, as well as teams have previously been able to do, I think there was 20 goals conceded in the last month with Bielsa. There's a few things here. There's a little turbo boost, of course, of being a new manager. But when we can see from the average positions here as well, is that, yes, when you do press, when it's man for man and everyone's just going for their man, I think they've been found out a little bit. You know, you switch to play quickly. Think of the Aston Villa game, using the fullbacks there. They couldn't deal with it. Now, with a double pivot, it allows for, if you do all go and press, I mean, that was Bamford and he had to come off a little bit. But if you all do go and press, you've still got not just one player, but another player. If the opposition make that switch over to the other side, you've got Matthias Klick there to help. And there's been a resurgence in his game as well. FGC was saying that when he's getting the ball, it's not about him being higher up the pitch and having to use his pace and dribbling. It's about him getting the ball and progressing the ball. So he's looking a little bit better there. But there's just that little bit more contingency by having those 2 players there. The other thing to remember as well is that the fullbacks are playing in a very different way as well. And again, under that theme of previously having inverted fullbacks a lot of the time. Stuart Dallas used to be playing in a lot more of a central position. It's actually the other way. They're playing a lot more narrow when they've got the ball and allowing the two fullbacks to just be fullbacks at the moment. Time will tell if that works for them, but I think there is that added security here. And ultimately, the philosophy of Bielsa was so pure that there wasn't that tweaking that can just get you a victory when you need a victory. And that's maybe what Jesse March is doing. Let me know what you think, Leeds United fans. I'd love to know how you feel about the last 4 games. Have you seen that improvement? Is it one that's based on structural elements or just that manager bounce? Let me know in the comments below. Does Gerrard bottle the big games? Calm down. It is provocative. No, it is provocative. No, I understand that. But hear me out. This sort of ultra-defensive first-half approach, be it on purpose or not, is hurting Aston Villa. Because this is an Aston Villa team with a manager who has set his sights very, very high. And I think he will get there. I really do. I really like Aston Villa. I really like Gerrard as well. And what I like about him is that he can't compute not having a winning mentality. And these players are going to have to kind of catch up with him. And that's going to take time. But I think he's almost skipping ahead a little bit. And he's got teams that are kind of struggling in that first half of games against teams. In the second half, you know, he gets into them and you get a bit of a reaction. But sometimes it's a little bit too late. And in this game against Arsenal, who were really, really strong again, Arsenal, in this game. We can dive into that in a second. And I have got a bit of a rant to go on as well, so stick around for that. But the first half, we have a look at the statistics here. Just nothing, really, from Aston Villa. You know, 0. And I mean 0. They weren't able to get anywhere in that first half. And as you can see, no shots at all. 57% possession for Arsenal as well. And I think it's down to our expectations, you know. They brought in some exciting players. I think it was a good base of a squad prior to that. And in these games, you expect them to have a bit more of a go, especially at home. 0.51 XG to 1.47. It was very, very comfortable. And Thomas Partey, I thought, was really, really good for Arsenal in particular in what's always going to be a congested central area. But his ability to sort of get on the ball and move it forwards and recycle it really quickly was really impressive. But Gerrard against these top teams, he has struggled. They seem to lack a confidence against these better sides. And I don't know if that's the players or the manager in terms of how he's setting them out. I would imagine he would want them to be on the front foot, be proactive, get into them, you know, play in his image. But at this moment in time, we're not really seeing that. And we thought after that 3-game run, that winning streak against Brighton, Southampton and Leeds, 2-0, 4-0, 3-0, where you thought it would lend towards the idea that this was a solid team that were very accomplished going forward. You know, like Coutinho and Jacob Ramsey's exciting people, Watkins. I mean, I've said it myself on this exact show, The Fallout. We are excited about Aston Villa, but there is still this gap between them and the better teams. If you think Villa ended their match against West Ham with a total of 13 shots. However, they only got 3 shots in the first half of that game. There's a struggle in that first half. There really, really is. If you think the same against Man United, yes, they got 2 goals in the second half, which shows that there is potential there, and they can be excited about that. But they only had 4 shots in the first half of a game. Now, is that down to game management? Possibly. But something's not right there. And I don't know if it's a belief thing or a dealing with the sort of high intensity of the first half of a game as it's kind of all in the ether and then it needs to settle down. But if you think about being a first half team and struggling in the first half, think of that game against Southampton. They were fantastic in that game. They were 2-0 up before half time. They'd registered 9 shots in that first half. So they play Wolves next, Villa, which is going to be interesting against a team that is quite kind of cagey. And I guess it's a big game, of course. They're local towards each other. And Wolves are quite pragmatic and kind of can sit back at times. But also keep an eye out on the Spurs game, because I think the Spurs game could be one where Aston Villa kind of come into their own against a team in the Big Six. Because as good as Spurs have been recently, and they are moving towards a different style, they are still a team that, if you sit back and defend against them, you can get a little bit of joy on the counter-attack. And so this sort of ultra-defensive approach that Gerrard seems to kind of put out there against the Big Six sides, if he does stick with it in that game, you could see yourself having a bit of a shock. I did want to touch on the average positions once again, because I think it just highlights how great Arsenal are at this moment in time. Yes, it's just a 1-0 win, but thought they looked really good. You know, congested and a bit messy for Aston Villa, and isolated Watkins up top there as well. But Arsenal, it's just really nice. You know, they know what they're doing. They're committing players forward in terms of Saka to stretch it. Lacazette playing a real sort of facilitator's role there in terms of the assists that he's got this season. But, you know, when we look at Barcelona early in the video, with Arsenal, you can see similar things. You know where they are, and they're all in between lines consistently. Even Saka there, if we be kind to ourselves. It's very, very clear what they're doing here, and it's very impressive. Thomas Partey crucial in all of this. And again, ready for a rant now. I do just want to say that, like, everywhere I'm hearing about Arteta, knew was great, knew was an outstanding coach. I think I heard Gary Neville say that, and like, fair enough. I think he deserves that plaudit. One thing I'm a little bit annoyed about is that I just expect football fans to be a little bit better than they are sometimes. And I think everyone hammered Arteta for a long time. And maybe it's just because I'm I gave him a chance. But there's a lot of football fans that kind of go, okay, well, he's lost a couple of games, let's forget about it. Like, everything that he's saying now, he's talking about the process, like all these things. It was a vision that he had. And I think we as football fans need to see that when you see someone who's clearly intelligent, clearly open-minded, clearly has a vision, and is clearly trying to instill that into a squad, it's going to take a minute to crystallise, to form, to pull into focus. You know, look at Jesse Marsch. I think Jesse Marsch is a smart, articulate manager who will continue to develop. So it's a great appointment. Arteta, similar thing. But Arteta, it's amazing how so many people were completely against him. The guy was a joke, and now all of a sudden he's a good manager. I think he was a good manager before, but the rest of the world was sort of waiting to catch on. So yeah, interesting times for Arsenal. They're in a really, really good spot now. They've just got to be careful because Spurs are coming on the outside. That sounds horrific. Sorry. Will you get top 4, Arsenal fans? Let me know. Ooh, that North London derby is going to be spicy. Really, really spicy. Tottenham with a great win against West Ham makes you feel a little bit like we said in the top 4 video, that European run is going to take its toll on this West Ham squad. They put up a good fight, but I think if we look at the game itself, you can see that this was perfect for Spurs. Really, really was perfect for Spurs, for them to play West Ham, which is seen as obviously a tough game. And they blew them out in the early stages of the game, and overall West Ham really struggled. As you can see, 6 shots, just 1 on target during the entirety of the game. 17 shots for Spurs, who looked really, really strong. First half, only 5 shots to 4, which was interesting. It showed that actually it was just coming from those big chances and those counter-attacks as well. But in the second half, real dominance from Spurs as West Ham wilted away a little bit. I think we thought that was always going to be the case, and I think you see it from the average positions as well. If we start off with West Ham, just to say, and I think they are always a little bit conservative, but if your average positions are going to be like this, which is pretty deep, you need that little bit of help from your fullbacks, and it's one where you're screaming for someone like Soufal to be able to be available for the team, to be able to get up the pitch. Play with a back 3, actually, just to try and get themselves a draw, I think, in this game. And also the fact that you haven't got Jared Bowen, it's a real loss for them. And I think it's going to be a big reason why they don't get into the top 4 as well, because you need to have more than one player as that option. You're trying to play with Lanzini and Ben Rama, sorry. But it's all quite narrow, it's all quite central, and you found just not really going to hurt the opposition because Antonio can't do everything. You need those runners in behind, or you need to be able to work the ball up the pitch. And if you think of the amount of players here that played 120 minutes on Thursday, I think it just killed them a little bit. Spurs, though, there's some really interesting elements here. And look, again, when we're looking at average positions, we're looking to see a pattern here, to see something that looks pretty. I think you guys, if you've been watching me for a while, I think you can see it sometimes. You can see what a team is trying to do with their average positions. And there's a few things to talk about here. I think the 2 centre midfielders is one part of it. And then, of course, Kulusevski's a huge part of it as well, which we've spoken about on the channel a little bit over the last couple of weeks. Let's start off with the 2 centre midfielders, because first of all, the fact that they're on each other's toes there, that shows that, for me, the stretch and the spread, of the rest of the team, those 2 create that. the consistency, the efficiency of their play on the ball. The fact that they can use each other as a little bounce back if they need it, but also you've got two players, and in particular Højbjerg, who can burst forward a little bit when he needs to. You create that protection for your three centre-backs, but you offer passing lanes as well on both sides, and a way to get around it and to allow other players higher up the pitch. West Ham fell off a little bit, and I think that's a big part of this as well. But the fact that you're allowed Reguilon to get as forward as he was is incredible stuff. And again, it comes down to the trust of these players. Romero as well, really, really good on the ball for them as well. But Bentancur, that confidence that he has with the size that he's got to take the ball in difficult areas and to get out of trouble, it means that these players do go. They're not afraid to leave because they go, well, these two will keep hold of the ball. I think that's a huge, huge part of it. The other thing, as I said a couple of times over the last couple of weeks, Kulusevski, so important because, again, it drags the whole team up the pitch. He's so exciting for them. Previously, it just really was those two in Kane and Son. And again, if you stop them, a bit like when we were talking about West Ham, if you stop Antonio, everything's in front of you, life's good. With Spurs, it was like, well, keep an eye on Son, but without these two allowing the fullbacks to get on because there's that trust there, but also Kulusevski in terms of the energy that he provides, and also that ability to drive in centrally, it creates other movements. When he comes here, that allows Kane to switch off here, or even Kane can actually drop into this area as well. Let me just get it back. He could drop into this area, get it here, and then you've got that third runner of someone like Son. And again, players that you can trust, it then allows someone like Doherty, or it allows Reguilon on the overlap as well. Really, really nice. Perfect game for them in terms of being at home against a challenger. And if you look at their fixtures left over, they're putting themselves in the shop window to have a real go at this top four. It really, really is. And Kulusevski, it's amazing. And I think that's where you've got to give Antonio Conte credit, Paratici maybe as well, is that two players have massively changed it for them. And I think it also highlights that Skip and Højbjerg were just that little bit too similar. And so now with these two, I think you now know what the Spurs team is. I think we know what it is now. And I think that's a great starting point. Once you know what your best 11 is, that's the starting point to go and win games, get chemistry, get confidence, and get points. Leicester 2, Brentford 1. The XG was 1 to 1.79. Brentford very often win the XG battle. A couple of things to talk about. I think Leicester City, there's a few players that are actually going under the radar a little bit just because they've had a bit of an odd season. It's obviously not really worked for them. First of all, Maddison. He's been really, really strong this season. Had a bit of a free roll in this game. 4 key passes for the side. Looked really, really good. He's created 7 big chances this season. 8 goals, 3 assists. Has a bit of a needle with Brentford, actually, and he scored in both games for them, so he'll be happy with that. You can see with that free roll as well, able to kind of go over to the other side to create a couple of overloads with Harvey Barnes at times as well, and to help out Iheanacho. He had a cracking game for them and has had a really, really good season for him. Man of the match performance for sure. Also, I thought it was interesting, James Justin, he's become very important. And in terms of a bit more of a sort of slow build-up play and having someone who's comfortable on that right-hand side to do that, James Justin might be the answer there. Obviously, you've got someone like Pereira, but James Justin coming in, he's getting his fitness back. Very, clear in the spots that he's going to be on the pitch. But when we're talking about fullbacks, and we are talking about more and more and more these days, he was on the ball more than any other player. 84 touches in the game, 90% pass accuracy as well, which is really, really strong for them. Castagna on the other side, only 46 touches, so he's not as involved. Obviously, he's got that great engine and scored an absolute cracker for them as well. It's going to be interesting to see what they do over the coming weeks, if they focus on the Europa Conference League. They've got PSV Eindhoven next up, or if they try and kind of make a bit of a push when it comes to the league. I think you've got to go for the trophies, haven't you? So it'll be interesting to see how they mix it up. But that might be good in terms of getting some ideas on next season and which players are going to be capable for them. For Brentford, what was most interesting, obviously, it was a big loss to not have Christian Eriksen. I think that meant a lot, really, in terms of the ability of having those sort of diagonal balls to him or Mbeumo as well. I think that hurt them a little bit, because if you had someone like Eriksen, it might allow you to play Ivan Toney a little bit more central, and then Mbeumo goes to this area here. Mbeumo had a solid game for them. You can see the structure of the team here. And I think what is interesting is that previously, without Eriksen, they've played as a back three. In this game, it allowed Norgard to kind of do that role in terms of dropping in if he needed to. But actually, they stuck with the 4-3-3, which means that they're kind of starting to trying to go for it a little bit more. Let's say that. Not too much to say here. Positive signs, I think, that because they have struggled with chance creation, they still created 2 big chances in the game. And if it wasn't for those absolute screamers from Leicester City, this would have been a really, really tight game. And in a game that was kind of a bit of a free hit for Brentford, they might have been able to get themselves at least a point away from home, which would help them with their total as they look to battle it out down the bottom. I think that overall, 30 points. If they can get a couple more victories, they're obviously completely safe. And they've still got that nice gap between them and Watford. So there you have it, guys. Thank you so much for watching the Fallout. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know what you think about your team and their performance. Is there anything that you saw that was interesting? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the like button as well. Can we get 2,000 likes on this video? Massively, massively helps, especially with the Fallout where we're talking about loads of different things. Sometimes it struggles a little bit, so every like helps. Hit the notification bell as well because we will be going live this week with the England squad selector. It's going to be a belter of a video, so I will see you guys all there.